Hello and welcome to the last unit of week 1. In the previous unit, we have created the screens and assigned them to the business users. However, the screens do not look appealing, and hence in this unit of user interface enhancements, we will go ahead and fine-tune the screens. To fine-tune the screens generated for the custom business object, the framework provides UI Designer tool. No separate installation is required for this tool, and it comes as part of the SAP Cloud Application Studio itself. We create the screens in the studio and then use UI Designer tool to modify the look and feel of the screens as per our needs. The section UI Designer indicates what the UI Designer tool is capable of. The tool offers the following: adding of user interface controls, define properties for the fields or UI controls, bind business object fields to the UI fields, create event handlers, queries, navigation between screens, version management, checkmate tool, etc. Once the screens are fine-tuned, we can then do the testing in the SAP Business by Design solution. The UI tool is composed of the following sections: the designer, controller, data model, and the preview section. Designer is used to design the user interface of an application with the available panes and controls from the toolbox. Controller is used to define the interaction between UI components by creating event handlers, interfaces, navigations, queries. Data model is used to bind the UI fields to the backend business object fields. Preview is used to preview the changes made to an UI component. Now, let us get into the SAP Cloud Application Studio and launch UI Designer tool from there and fine-tune the generated screens. Here I am in the SAP Cloud Application Studio. I first go to the Work Center job profile and I rename this job profile. I click on the title, give a spacing between the job and the profile so that it is easy to read. I do the same thing for the Work Center view as well. I change the title to job profile and I remove the view. And now I come to the OWL. Here you see the data list. For this data list, I would like to add a status field. I could do that by dragging and dropping from the Bureau browser. There are other section groups available below in the details pane. I would like to add certain fields here like the job end date and the hiring manager name. On the other side, I could add fields like the created by and changed by. Now, if I want to add the advanced filter, I could do that by clicking on this advanced tab, advanced link. Now, I go to the data model. You could see that there is a search parameters which is being created. I go to the controller, creator in the query. I do the binding for the query by elements and I drag and drop the fields which are of my interest to show in the advanced filter. The query parameters has to be bound to the search parameters. So, hence I go back to the data model and add the fields and I come back here and then bind them to the query parameters. Once that is done, I go back to my designer, I go to the properties, just want to verify if the search parameter binding is fine, it is fine. Now, I go to the data model, drag and drop those search parameters into the advanced filter pane. Now, I click on save and activate. Okay. So, now we see that there is a listing here, all job profiles. I would like to enhance this. I would do that by clicking on find forms and add a new form pane. You could see that there is another search parameters created here. I add certain fields. I come to the controller, create a new query, bind the result set and bind my query by elements, and drag and drop those fields which are of my interest, and then I use status field, and I want to use the status field to the drop down. So, I would like to then see only the published jobs in my result set. So, I go back to the designer. I forgot to put the status, so that I want to see only the published jobs. So, the value for this is 02 based on the code list which we have maintained in the backend. Go to the default set mapping. I select the new form pane which we have created, click on OK and click on save and activate. Oops, I see an error. It says that the high value or the low value of the query parameter is not maintained properly. Let us go back there and check. So, I go to the queries once again, check the default set. For the status field, it is missing. Let me add back the value here and give 02, and I click on save and activate once again. Yep. So, there you go, it's saved and activated successfully now. You could see that the default set is also coming up. Now, let us go to the UI and check these changes which we have made. To refresh, I just go back to some of the screen and relaunch the job profile. Now, you see I have the advanced filter. I filter based on job profile 1, JP1, the job ID, I get that. So, now I would also show the other list. Now, once I select this, it shows only the job which is published status. Now, let us say you have created a job profile in the QAF, but then you would like to then go ahead and show this on the OWL with the auto refresh. Let us see how to do that. So, for that I go to the controller, add an input with the name auto refresh underscore input, and provide a local event with the name auto refresh under local event, and on fire I execute the default set of this OWL. So, save and activate. Now, I go to the QAF and add the input, so that when I make any changes in my QAF, I could see them directly on the OWL without a refresh. So, I create an output with the name auto refresh underscore output. I provide the same name, the local event which I have provided in the OWL. Here I set the broadcast to true, and this output has to be fired on save. So, hence I create a new fire output here and fire the output auto refresh underscore output, save and activate. Now, let me just quickly refresh. I change this job ID, let us say I make it to JP1, and I click on save and I click on close. Note that you could now see JP1 highlighted without doing a refresh. Now, in the job profile BO, we have added a field or a node with the text collection. I would like to show how to do that on the UI. So, first I add a flex layout row, I go to the configuration explorer, it is an embedded component. So, I am looking for that. So, I go to SAP byd8 application UI, under the reuse folder, as part of the nodes you have an embedded component here by the name single text edit. So, I drag and drop, and then I do some properties for this embedded component. I select this plain text and give a constant value here for the text type code as 10006, and then I do a binding, and now I save and activate. Now, the job listing QAF, where the candidates could go ahead and apply for a particular job, he would like to attach his resume. So, let us see how to do that. Go to the Configuration Explorer once again. In the reuse folder, we have the attachments section, and I drag and drop the document list. And click on bind. I click on OK, save and activate. Now, there is also an additional possibility of tracking the changes history. So, I do that by annotating the BO with the name changes history, and then I include that as part of my OIF, that is the object instance floor plan. There is a tab here by the name changes. So, I click on that and I drag and drop the changes history embedded component from the reuse folder. I go to properties, and here we have to specify the parameters. So, first I provide the BO name. The BO name here is job profile. Echo name is also the same, provide the same thing with job profile. Now, I need to provide the namespace that could be obtained from here in the data model. I could see the namespace. Note this down. Go back to the designer, go to the properties of the embedded component, and here you could provide the BO namespace. I copy this, I have to provide the same thing in the echo namespace as well. Click on OK, and I have to do the binding now. I add a simple navigation here. I have not provided an output. Let me first go ahead and do that. So, for that I go to the controller, I create a new output, I bind the node ID here, and this output has to be fired. So, I do it through an event handler. Rename this to changes history, fire the output which we just created. Now, I go back to binding. So, now you could see the output, and I do the binding here now. Now, when I click on this changes tab, the event handler has to be fired. So, I select on click changes history, I click on save and activate. So, for this to work, we need to deploy the business configuration. Once this is saved and activated, I would go back to the studio and then deploy the business configuration. So, to do that, go to your solution, right click on it and say deploy business configuration. In the meanwhile, let me go to the UI and refresh the screen till the business configuration is deployed. So, now you could see that the business configuration is deployed successfully. We could go ahead and test. So, I make some change to the existing job profile. Let us say I make a change with job ID JP12, I click on close, I go to edit, we have added in the OIF, so I click on view all. I go to the changes tab, and when you fire the query here, you could see the changes what all has been done. Yeah. Also, I just want to show about the long text or the text collection. So, I just make an entry here, I do a save and close. Now, I go back to the UI designer. Now, I would like to see how to navigate from a custom screen to a standard screen. So, let us go to the job applications OWL, where a manager would like to see the overview of a candidate. For that, I go to the designer of the job applications OWL. I do not see candidate ID or the employee ID as part of the list here. So, I drag and drop the candidate ID to the list. It shows me as a link. So, let us retain that. Now, let us see how to configure this OBN navigation. So, I do an add OBN. I rename this to employee OBN, and here we have to provide the target business object. The target business object is employee and it resides in the business partner global namespace. Select the BO model as employee. And then I have to provide the corresponding candidate ID, so that that corresponding fact sheet opens up. So, I bind the attributes. I have to fire this output. So, hence I create a event handler. I rename this to employee, fire the output. And then on click of this, I select the event handler which we just created, that is to employee. Click on save and activate. So, we could test this now. This is a admin user. So, I log into the user manager who has the authorization to the job applications view. I go to the job applications view, and here I have the hyperlink now, and I click on this, the fact sheet opens up. With this, I come to the end of the demo. Let me quickly summarize the unit. We saw a brief overview on what the UI designer tool is and what are its capabilities. We modified and enhanced the screens as per the need. The concepts of fine tuning the screens using the UI designer tool is available as part of the exercise for this unit. Please make use of it and get a hands-on experience for this unit. That's it for this unit and week 1. See you in the next week, and good luck for your weekly assignment, and be sure to submit it before the deadline. Thank you.